Hello and welcome to Dojit Notify. Today I will be taking you through how to use our new Notify service and how to set up your game and get it launched with us. To start with, open your browser and go to developer.dojit.com. First thing you'll see is our simple login page. If you don't have an account with us at the moment, you can register now for free by clicking the link at the bottom. Simply fill out the details on the registration form and click register, and within a few seconds you should receive an email confirming these details. Once you receive the email, that means your registration was successful, and then you can use those details to sign into the site. Once you've signed in, you'll be presented with our Get Started page, which will give you a quick overview of what you need to do to get your game launched on our service. To start with, you need to add your game, which you can do by clicking on the button on the Get Started page, or by going to the Games item in the sidebar and clicking Add Game. On this Add Game form, you'll see a generated game ID, which is required for when you're using the plugin. You can either note that down now, or you can access it later via the summary page. To add your game to the service, simply fill out the Add Game form, and I'm just going to fill it out with some simple test data for a Hello World game. You can choose two genres. Choose two genres from the standard genre list, and we also cater for non-game apps if you so wish. Then you enter your software version and the launch date and the expected launch date for your app or game. The marketing URL is simply the website to showcase your game, so for us that is simply dojit.com. Then you will need to select the stores which you plan to launch your game on. This isn't set in stone at the moment, and it's simply for our records to let us know which stores you plan to launch on. Finally, fill out your social media links to sites such as Twitter and Facebook. I won't fill them all out now, but we also have social media links for Pinterest, YouTube and Flickr. Once you've finished filling out these fields, click Submit, and then your game will be added to our database. If you go to the Games tab on the sidebar again, and now go to Summary, and scroll down, you should be able to see your new game created alongside the other games you have already listed. This page will tell you name and genres of the game, along with the game ID that was generated for you, and it will list a few simple items about the game to let you know whether you've set it up fully or not. There's a launch button in the top right corner, which once you've purchased a subscription to the service, you will be able to click the launch button, and then that will allow you to send notifications from this game. Until the game is launched, you cannot send notifications. The next step in launching the game is to upload certificates. And by selecting the game, you'll be taken through to the Upload Certificates page. We allow upload certificates for the Apple Push Notification Service and for the Android's Google Cloud Messaging Service. Simply create your certificates on the various provider sites, and then click the Upload Certificates button to upload them. For Apple certificates, you'll need to enter a valid passphrase to accompany the certificate file, and for Android we simply require the API key. Once you've entered the relevant information, the Save Changes buttons will become enabled, allowing you to click Save and have those changes reflected in our database. The next step would be to add some levels for your game. If we go through to the levels form and select our game, we'll see that there are no levels currently available for it, but we can simply click Add Levels and select a number of levels to add for this particular game. You can add multiple levels at once by just typing in the number that you require, and then to edit the details for a level that's just been created, you can simply click to edit the details for a level that's just been created. You can simply click on the level and type as you normally would. Clicking the tick will save that level's details. For pickups, this is the number of items or coins in Mario, for example, that the player can collect as they play through the level. So this level, for instance, could have 100 pickups that the player can collect, so we'll put that in there. The next two columns are the level and sub-level indexes, and these will be required for use with the plugin in order to generate gameplay data and for us to know which levels the gameplay data refers to. Then you can add sub-levels to that game, so that could be used, for instance, in a level pack related game. You could generate the levels as the level packs themselves and the sub-levels as the levels contained within those packs. Again, you simply click on the item itself and type in the box that appears to edit it. The number of pickups in each sub-level should match the number of pickups in the total level. So 50 plus 50 equals 100. You'll see that each sub-level also gains a level index and a sub-level index, and again this is used in the plugin to let us know which level in that game is being played. Once you've finished changing the levels that you've just created, simply click the Save button at the bottom and the changes will be logged into our database. Then you can move on and create some variables for that game. The variables are just a way to store data that occurs in the game on our servers instead, so you can create what's called a recipe for them later on. We'll move on to onto what a recipe is in just a second, but for now you can simply create variables in exactly the same way as you created levels, and you can create multiple ones at once and then edit them in the exact same way as levels as well, by clicking on the field and typing a name. You can also type a description, which will be shown alongside when you're creating a recipe from these variables. These names will be it's the names of the variables that will be used in the plugin at a later stage, so there is no indexing system for the variables. Once you've finished entering these details, simply click Save again, and the changes will be saved into the database. We're going to take a quick look at game treats before looking at recipes, and game treats are uploaded via a CSV file. Simply select the game that you would like to add the game treats to, and then choose a relevant file on your computer. You can also preview the file by clicking the preview button, and then finally click submit to upload the game treat CSV to the database. As the message displays, a CSV for game treats should contain only 2 columns, one starting with the title game treat and the other starting with the title description. A game treat is basically a cheat that the player can enter inside the game into a text field, and it gives them something in return for entering that game treat. This can be used to increase player retention and can be sent, for example, in a push notification to reward the player for opening the game from the push notification. Moving on to recipes, we'll have a look at what a recipe basically is. First of all, you will need a name for the recipe. So I'm just going to use Hello World recipe here, and obviously select the game that the recipe applies to. A recipe is basically a set of conditions that a user can match, and if the user does match those conditions, then a notification will be generated for them. This notification will be generated from the gameplay data that we receive, and can also be generated from the user's details, such as their make and model of phone and their variable data. You can choose to run a recipe manually, which means that you, the developer, would have to find the recipe and click it yourself. Or you can choose to have it run automatically, which is run by an hourly process on our server, and you don't have to worry about the collection of the recipes, they will just be collected for you. So I'm going to make this recipe a manual recipe for now. You can also choose the time that the recipe will be received by the user at. You can choose as soon as queued, which means as soon as the recipe has run, it will be ready to go out. Or you can choose a specific time, for example, 7 o'clock in the morning. If you do choose a specific time, then the notification will be received by the user at that particular time in their time zone. So for example, if you put 7 o'clock in the morning and you have players in America and players in England, both players will receive it at 7 o'clock in the morning at their time. So 7 o'clock in America and 7 o'clock in England. Next, you can choose which service you want to send it via. If you choose service, it will go out via Apple Push Notification Service or Google Cloud Messaging for Android. And if you choose in-game prompt, it will be it can be delivered to a text box inside the app by simply using the plugin to retrieve that in-game notification. Then we come to the conditions, which is the major part of a recipe. At the moment, these are the fields you can choose from. Days since last played, being the days since the player last completed a level in the game. The others are fairly self-explanatory, such as difficulty level, number of mistakes made, points that they gained in that particular level, and so on. I'm going to do days since last played for this particular one, and we can also set a number of operators on that condition. So I'm going to simply go with greater than or equal to and put 3 days. So this recipe, when it runs, will match any users who have not played for 3 or more days. So we can use that to send them a simple message like you haven't played for a while, why not come back and try and beat your previous score. As you may have noticed, the character count next to this particular message is going down as I typed, and we've allowed each message to be 140 characters, the same length as a tweet. This is simply due to constraints on the payload size that we're allowed to send via a push notification. So we've decided to impose a size limit on the message so that you cannot send any more than that maximum payload size. You can also add multiple messages for a recipe, so a second message for this particular recipe could come back and play today. And we'll just add a third one. Which we'll just put as simply play today. When this recipe runs, one of these messages will be chosen, and then that message will be sent to the user. If you have users in different languages, we have support for that as well. For example, if you wanted to send a specific message to your French users, you could select the French language and add a new message for that. So you could add a simple message in French there, and we also have support for multiple messages in other languages as well. Again, these messages will be simply cycled through when the recipe is run. With the current settings, French users will receive the French messages and English users will receive the English messages. You can also add messages for all of the languages that we support. So for example, if you added a Japanese message, the Japanese users would receive that message only. They would not receive the French or the English messages. We require that one English message be added to every recipe in order to provide a fallback for languages that you may not have entered a recipe for. So if you have a user who is German, for example, and we haven't entered any German messages for this recipe, then that user will receive one of the English messages instead. So once you've entered all of those details and you're happy with them, click submit, and that recipe will be created and stored in the database. You can then come back to it at any time by going to modify recipe, and selecting go to the recipe list, which will list all recipes for a particular game. So we can see that particular recipe has been created. We can see the condition, and we can also see that there are 5 different messages across 2 different languages. We have some actions on the far side that we can apply to this recipe. We can make it inactive, which basically means that it will not go out when the recipes are run. And then once we've made it inactive, we can also make it back active again. Other actions that we can have, since this is a manual recipe, this is where you would add it to the notification queue, and we can also modify and delete it from this form. If we click on modify, you'll see that all of the details are loaded from that recipe, along with both messages that we added. You can then add more messages, change conditions, and so on. Finally, we move on to the plugin, which is the part that you will need to use when building and programming the game. We support Unity version 3.57 to 4.2, and we support HTML5 games with PhoneGap and Trigger. Simply select the plugin that is relevant to the platform you're building on. After the plugin links, it follows a step-by-step instruction of how to install the Dojit Notify plugin and the parts from the website that you will need to input into the plugin. For example, at one stage you will need to enter the game ID that you generated from the add game form, and that is also visible from the summary form, and you will need to enter that into the plugin. Simply follow the steps detailed below, and you should be able to install the plugin successfully and easily. We also have an analytics section on our website, which will allow you to see basic statistics about your game. So, for example, we can see for Chicken Strike that we have an abundance of Apple users and not many Android users at the moment. We can also change the variable at the top, and we can see things like the times that people started playing. So for Chicken Strike, most people play at 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock at night. And we can see various other statistics here. These are mostly based on the gameplay data. Some of these are based on the gameplay data that we receive from the levels, and some are based on the users' data, which phones they're using, for example, which country they are based in, etc. Once you've gone through all of this, you will want to purchase a subscription in order to launch the game and allow push notifications to be sent. You can do that simply from the Purchase tab. We have a number of subscriptions that you can choose from. Simply click Sign Up and proceed through the checkout to purchase your subscription. Your active subscriptions will be displayed on the Subscriptions tab. As you can see, this account is currently set to Dojit Notify Lite. Finally, under the documentation, we have step-by-step guides, FAQs and example recipes that you might want to create. We'll just take a quick look at each of those. The step-by-step guide will show you a how-to video of how to use Dojit Notify, and simply installation instructions for the plugin as well here. The FAQs are any frequently asked questions we have, and they should be probably your first port of call if you have a simple question that you think could be answered. Example recipes is simply a list of recipes that we have created that you could potentially use in your game, such as if the days since last played is greater than 5, you could send a message saying, "It's been a while, why don't you come back for some more fun?" You could also optionally send a game treat along with that message to entice the player back into playing. There are quite a few recipes here across a multitude of game types, so please take a look and see if any of them meet your requirements. Finally, we have a help section, which will provide you with contact information to get in touch with us. if you have any questions that were not answered by the FAQ or the step-by-step help. You can also change your profile settings in the Profile tab. Finally, the link at the top right displaying your current login status, also clickable, and this is where you can log out of the site. Thank you for watching, and that was a quick tour of Dojit Notify. We hope you find our service useful, and if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask us. Thank you.